This lesson, we're going to continue with advanced trigonometry, and we're going to look at the cosine rule for finding lengths in a non-right angle triangle. So let's jump right in. So there's the proof. The proof for this rule is quite complicated, so we're not even going to bother looking at the proof for it. But this is the formula here, okay? So this is the cosine rule. And today we're going to use this to find missing lengths in a non-right angle triangle. Okay, so there's a few things we need to know about this rule before we can use it. So this is for non-right angled triangles. So obviously, if it was a right angle triangle, we could use Pythagoras, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. But because we need to use this for non-right angle triangles, okay? For this lesson, we're going to use it to find a missing side. Okay. And the only information, or the bits of information that we need to know in order to use the cosine rule is one angle between two known sides. Between two known sides. This is also known as an included angle. Okay. So if we have a look at this triangle to the left of us now, so we're going to do this properly with an example. But if we were to label this triangle up with numbers and letters, let's have a quick go at that. Okay. So remember, we label angles with capital letters. So I'm going to call this 62 degrees. I'm going to call that capital A. Just go round the circle to B, and then angle C. Okay. And then the side opposite to the angle, we give that the lowercase version of the letter. So we've got A, opposite angle B, we've got B, and opposite angle C, we've got C. Okay. Now, if we look at our formula at the top of the page now, we can go through and we can make sure we highlight to make sure we know we've got everything that we're trying to find. Okay. So the first part of the equation, it says we're looking for a squared. So that's our missing side, okay? So that's going to be x. So that's what we're trying to find, okay? What about the rest of it? Well, we're looking for b squared. Well, we've got side b here. That's going to be 10. We need c squared. Side c will be 11 centimeters. And then it's 2 times bc. Well, we've got b, which is 10 again. And we've got c, which is 11. So we've got those. And then cos of angle A. And we've got angle A here. That's the angle we're given, okay? So we can get rid of angles B and C. So this shows us now that we have everything in this triangle that we need to use the cosine rule to answer this question. Okay, so let's jump right in and let's have a go at answering some questions. So we need to find missing side X of this triangle, and we're going to give our answers to 2 decimal places. Okay, so before we do that, we need to look at the formula and we need to know what information we need. Okay, so obviously we're trying to find A. So our formula will start off with a squared equals. Okay, so let's go through the rest of it. So what is B? Well, if you remember, we labeled the 10 centimeters side B. And what is C? Sorry, B is 10 centimeters. We labeled C this 11 centimeters over here. So C equals 11 centimeters. And then the last thing, we've got B and C again. We already know what B and C are. And then angle A, well, we labeled this 62 degrees as angle A. Okay. So this is all the information we need now to fill in our formula. Okay. And this is how we're going to answer this question, how we're going to find the missing side. So we just go through the formula step by step and we just substitute the letters for the known values over here. Okay. So the first part is we've got a squared. Well, a is our missing side. That's x. That's what we're trying to find. So a squared equals b squared. So b is 10 centimeters. So 10 squared plus c squared. Well, c is 11. So plus 11 squared. Take away 2 Remember, when we've got letters next to each other, it's the same as multiplying. So 2 times B was 10, C was 11, and cos angle A, which is 62 degrees. Okay, so this is all we need now to figure out what A, or the missing side, X is. Okay, so I'm going to go through this, working out each part of the equation just to show you the full way of doing it. But when you use your calculators, if you type all this in one go and you press equals, as long as you've typed it in right, you'll get the right answer. Okay, so let's work through this step by step. So A squared, 10 squared is 100, 11 squared is 121, 2 times 10 times 11 is 220, times cos 62. Next line, 100 plus 121, 221. 220 times cos 62 is 103.2837. So be generous with the decimal points here, okay? If you're writing out the long way, write down at least 3 or 4 decimal points, okay, to make sure it's accurate. And if we take away those from each other, 221 take away 103.2837, we are left with 117.7163, okay? So now we know that A squared is 117.7163. That must mean that A, because the opposite of squaring is the square root, that means that A is the square root of 117.7163. And if you type that in your calculator, you should get A to be 10.85 centimeters. Okay, and A is also X. A is just the missing side X. Okay, so I've used A for the formula, but remember what we've solved for X. Okay, so the first example, X was 10.85 centimeters. Well, let's jump into the next example. Here we go again, another non-right angle triangle. So first things first, we're going to start off a triangle, but I'm not going to write A squared this time. So I'm going to write X squared. Okay, so X squared is going to be equal. Let's just label up this triangle quickly. So this is side A. I'm going to call this side B. I'm going to call this side C. Okay, and then this angle here will be angle A because it's opposite side A. Okay, so if I fill up my information, A was X, B is 9, C is 4, and then angle A is equal to 57. Okay, so jot down all this information just so you know what you're working with. And to fill out this formula, we're going to reuse this formula. So A squared will be X squared because A was X. B squared will be 9 squared plus C squared. C is 4, so that's 4 squared. Take away 2 times, well, B was 9, C is 4, and it's cos, and the angle was 57. Okay, and then we can just work this out all step by step. So X squared equals, well, 9 squared is 81, 4 squared is 16, take away 2 times 9 times 4, that is 72, times cos, don't forget it's times cos 57. So X squared, 81 plus 16 is 97, 72 times cos 57 is equal to 39.2214. Therefore, X squared is equal to 57.786. And the final step now, the opposite of X squared is we need to find the square root of the other side of the equation. So square root of 57.786. That gives us an answer of X equals 7.60 centimeters, and that's to 2 decimal places. Okay, so all we're doing, you need to recognize the parts of the triangle that you need to label up your triangle, write it in a nice neat box over here, and then enter these values, substitute these values into the cos formula. Okay, one more example. So I've got my triangle here. I'm just going to label up my sides. So I'm going to call the missing side A. Therefore, the opposite angle will be capital A. I'm going to call 10 centimeters side B. I'm going to call 14 centimeters side C. It doesn't actually matter which one B and C is, okay? It's important you get the side A, which is the unknown side, and angle A, which is the known angle, okay? As long as you got A right, it doesn't matter which B or C, they can be either or, okay? So let's fill in our table. So A was X, B was 10, C was 14, and angle A was 31 degrees. Okay, so let's fill in this. Let's substitute these values into our formula now. Okay, so A squared, well, A is X, so that gives us X squared. B squared, so B was 10, so that's going to be 10 squared. C squared, C was 14, 14 squared. Take away 2 times B was 10, C was 14, and it's going to be cos, and the angle was 31 degrees, so cos 31, okay? Again, just work through this. 10 squared is 100, 14 squared is 196, 2 times 10 times 14, that is 280, and that has to be multiplied by cos 31, okay? Don't forget that. And then keep going. 100 plus 196 is 296. 280 times cos 31, that gives you 240.0068. I've just rounded that up. If you take 240.0068 from 296, that gives you 55.9932. And then last bit now, the opposite of squaring x, we need to find the square root of the other side of the equation. So square root of 55.9932. That gives us a value of x equals 7.48 centimeters. Okay, and that's your final answer for this. Okay, so I would give it a few goes writing it out in full just to make sure you've got all the steps right. But if you were to type in all of this into your calculator and press equals, as long as it's right, you should get this final answer. Okay, let's have a look at some questions in the main task. So here's the main task now. So pause the video and have a go at these questions. And for the challenge question, be careful, you'll have to use another rule from a previous lesson, okay? So try and figure out what the other rule you have to use is, okay? So pause the video and have a go at this. Okay, so here are your answers. Very well done if you got them all right. And I'll just put the solution for the challenge question on the video quickly. So pause the video, see if you got it right, well done. If you didn't quite get it right, see where you maybe got it slightly wrong. But the first thing you had to do was you had to use the sine rule from last lesson, A over sine A equals B over sine B, to find BD, and then you could answer for AD. Okay, so very well done if you got that right. Feel free to pause the video and have a look at these workings out. Onto the checking question now. So pause the video, have a go at this checking question, okay? So read the question carefully, definitely draw some diagrams to help you. So pause the video and give this question a good go. Okay, so let's go through the answer to the checking question, okay? So first things first, this diagram should have given you an idea of what to start drawing or what to start labeling of a triangle, okay? Because odds are we're in a cosine lesson where we're probably going to be dealing with a triangle of some sort, okay? So first thing you could probably do is to find out how far these ships have traveled, okay? So if we look at the start time, they started traveling at 11 o'clock and we're asking how far away they are at 2 o'clock, okay? So 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock, that means they've been traveling for 3 hours, okay? So ship A, if he's been traveling at a speed of 30 kilometers per hour for 3 hours, all we need to do is times his speed by the amount of hours they've been traveling, okay? So 30 times 3, that means ship A has traveled 90 kilometers, and ship B, because he's also traveled 3 hours, all we need to do is his speed, which was 42 kilometers, times 3 hours. So 42 times 3, so that equals 126 kilometers, okay? So now we can label these two lines on our diagram. We can label ship A has traveled, not 40, he's traveled 90 kilometers. And ship B has traveled 126 kilometers. Good stuff. Now, we need to look at the bearings now, okay? So ship A traveled at a bearing of 45 degrees. So that means from north, his ship was traveling at 45 degrees. But ship B was traveling at a bearing at 108. So his bearing is 108 degrees. The whole bearing from north to B is 180 degrees, okay? But how do we find the angle between A and B? Well, we have to find the difference between the bearings of ship B and ship A, or A and B, okay? So when we do that, so if we know B, we need to take away the biggest from the smallest. So if ship B's bearing was 108 degrees, we need to take away 45 degrees, which is ship A's bearing. And 108 take away 45, that gives us a bearing of 63 degrees, okay? So we can get rid of these angles. So now we know the angle between A and B is 63 degrees, okay? So now we've got this, we can have a go at finally answering the question, okay? So we're trying to find this missing side here, okay? We're trying to find the distance between A and B, and we're going to call this X, okay? So let's label up our triangle again. I'll use a different pen color to make this slightly easier to see. So I'm going to call XA, I'm going to call the angle A, I'm going to call 90B and 126C, okay? So if I fill this in over here, we've got A, B, C, and angle A. A was X, B was 90, C is 126, and angle A is 63 degrees, okay? And you're gonna hopefully, well, you might have looked at the formula. If you can remember the formula by now, very well done. So the formula is A squared equals B squared plus C squared, take away 2BC cos of A. Okay, so that's the formula. So let's substitute that in. Let's go back to red pen. So A squared, so we've got X squared is equal to B squared, so B is 90, so 90 squared, not 9 squared, 90 squared, plus C is 126, plus 126 squared, take away 2 times B, B was 90, C was 126, times, and cos of angle A, so that's 63, so cos 63, okay? I'm not going to write this all out in full again. I typed all this into my calculator, and when I pressed equals, I got the number 13,679.4955, okay? And the final step for this now, the opposite of x squared, I need to take the square root of the other side, so x equals square root 13,679.4955, and that gave me the final answer, x equals 116.96 kilometers, and that is your final answer to this question, okay? So very well done if you got that right. If there was a few steps you missed out, that's all right. And good work, guys, and we'll see you next lesson. Bye now.